Hello, my friends. It is day 135, and we're reading 2 Samuel chapter 13 through 2 Samuel chapter 15. But before we get into our recap today, I want to thank you for taking a moment to check out this video. Hopefully, you are finding the yearly Bible reading program enjoyable and a tremendous blessing to you and your family. Hopefully, your family is reading along with you, and hopefully, you are leaving feedback every single day on the things you're learning. If you have not yet accepted the invitation, please make sure you check out the description box below. And there you'll find the link that will take you directly to the YouVersion Bible app where you can join us as we read the Bible every single day. And I know we'll be blessed as much as we hope you will be blessed by the interaction. But here we are. We're in 2 Samuel, day 135, and we are reading a part of the Bible that we wish would not have happened. I'm not going to say we didn't wish or we don't wish, or we wish rather that it wasn't in the Bible. I think everything in Scripture is intentionally put there for a purpose that the Spirit has identified, and we want to accept that. But man, does it not burn and make you cringe at times to see some of the things that we read, like the things we read here today? We have a situation where Tamar is sexually abused. She's and not only just abused, but she's abused by her own brother. This is a very chaotic situation. And we have to ask ourselves, why is this the case? Why is this happening? And we don't have to go far. We don't have to go far at all to discover why this is happening. It is actually happening as a result of the prophecy that Nathan gave David when he revealed to him his transgression against the Lord and against Uriah. And one of the things he said would happen is that God will cause David's own household to rebel against him. He said that this would be a consequence of what he did against Uriah. And literally the next chapter over, not even a chapter. We don't even waste any time seeing this happen. Immediately this happens right after it is said in the 12th chapter. And we see this manifesting in the life of David. And if you look at how David is portrayed here, he seems as if he is a defeated man. It's as if he knows that he is not at all in good grace with God. Or maybe should I say, he knows that there are some things he has to deal with as a result of what he did to Uriah. And it's almost as if you don't see the old courageous and violent David that you saw before, the one that would have quickly responded to such a thing as what we see from Absalom and all the other individuals that are involved. It's as if David accepts his lot at being cursed by God in this way. And so we see a different version of David, and we see these things happening, which again is a reminder. Forgiveness does not mean elimination of consequence. A person can be forgiven, but they do, and we often submit them to the consequence of their actions. And this is what's happening here. And I have to commend David. He accepts it gracefully. He doesn't complain as far as I can see so far. He doesn't, go to God and plead that, there be some other action taken. It seems as if he's aware that what he has coming to him is what he deserves, and it beats the alternative is the way I see him processing this. And so there are a number of things happening, but in chapter 14, Absalom was out of David's presence. He was allowed to come back, if you will, into the area, the vicinity, but he was not to see David. And as he returned back to his father's household, Joab uses a very interesting method because David must be approached correctly. We see this in Nathan as he approached him about his sin in chapter 12. We also see it in chapter 14 as well. And very, very wise way of doing this. But there's a line that this woman from Tekoa uses that speaks to the nature of God and how God deals with mankind. And what she's trying to get at is how David just threw his son away, if you will. Like he just allowed him to be banished from his presence. And she's using this argument to help him see that if he cared about Israel, if he really cared about justice, he would allow his son to come back. And she does this by explaining something that in her view depicts God and how God expects us, because of how he would handle a situation, how he expects us to handle our own conflict with other individuals. So look at this. This is such a beautiful line to me. In verse 14, chapter 14, it says, all of us must die eventually. Our lives are like water spilled out on the ground, which cannot be gathered up again. But God does not sweep life away. Instead, he devises ways to bring us back when we have been separated from him. I thought that was beautiful. I was like, man, listen, this is so good. She just gave us one right there. I mean, that was just, here's this woman that, doesn't even give her a name in scripture. Look at the depth of theology there. I mean, sometimes I look at our world and I look at the things we do and things we say, the things we think, and I'm like, man, we're missing it by a long shot, right? I mean, this is not some prophet. This is not some, priest or anything like that. This is just, as it were, in this text, it was a woman who, look at how they described her, had a reputation for great wisdom. And I just have to pause and pray and ask the Lord to give us wisdom like what we see here. Wisdom to discern not only the times we're living in or the circumstances that we're encountering, but perhaps the greater wisdom is just knowing the character of God, knowing what he is like being able to be in a situation like this where we see circumstances and we know how to respond because we've spent time discovering who God is, what he's like, and what he might do in any given situation. I would argue that it's hard to live godly until you have seen something of God that teaches you what godliness is all about based on your perception of who he is, right? Like we all need that. And this woman just gives us one in this way when she talks about God being one who creates ways. He creates ways to bring us back when we have separated or have been separated from him. That's such a beautiful concept. Like, just think about that for a moment, meditate on that, and run around the building if you have to, because it's just good to know that we serve the God who finds a way to bring us back to him. All right. I think you get it, but you must see now how good that is to me, because that was just so good. And then we see in chapter 15, David, again, humbly submitting to this circumstance. Absalom is one who already had a reputation as being one great looking man. It made reference to his hair being obviously beautiful. I guess this was a thing back then. But here he is devising a plan to overtake, if you will, the throne and the kingdom. And unlike David, he runs. Like, I know he ran from Saul, but he doesn't run from people that are beneath him. But in this situation, he runs. And this is why I think it's like, I think this is the Bible's way of showing us David is submitting to the consequence. And I think that's very noble. Whenever you deserve something, I don't think we should just appeal to the mercy of God just because we know he's merciful. I think we should be submitted enough and be aware of the justice of God to submit to him in this way, as to say, you know what, I know I had that one coming, so here I am. And peradventure, when we do that, God will extend his mercy towards us, right? But I think it's sometimes very dangerous to say, well, God, I know you're merciful. Just because you're merciful, will you let me off again? I think we have to be as much as we think about and appreciate God's mercy, we have to also appreciate God's justice. And even though we don't want that sometimes, like we don't want God to punish us, I think there's something that God honors when we say to God, though I don't want this, I can appreciate it because I understand even in your judgment, there's an element of mercy, because at least I'm still here to endure it, right? So I'm just thinking around what David is going. So look at chapter 15. Let me give you an example. In verse 25, he's on the run. He's taking the Ark of the Covenant. He gives special instructions to Zadok about the Ark of the Covenant. And notice what he says in verse 25. If the Lord sees fit, David said, see how he's thinking? I don't want to deal. I want to come back, obviously. But notice what he says. If the Lord sees fit, David said, he will bring me back to see the Ark in the tabernacle again. But if he is through with me, then let him do what seems best to him. You see what I'm saying there? So it's not like David is saying, oh, I just did wrong and Lord, just throw me away. I don't want to deal with it. You're right. Just punish me. What he's saying is whatever the Lord does is right. And who am I to argue with the righteous God, the one who never makes a bad decision? Like I did this to myself, and the worst that could happen to me is, facing the wrath of God. But the best thing is just putting myself into the hands of God, if you will, and letting him do what he does best. That'll be in the best interest of all of us. And so we see this drama unfolding, all these things happening, and it's all because, David did this. I often tell individuals, and I think this is worth saying here, life is ultimately made up of the sum total of the decisions we've made over time. Life is hardly the result of things that are outside of our control. It's not made up of those things. There are some things that happen to us that we wish would not have happened, and they should not have happened because we didn't have anything to do with it. But at the end of the day, we tend to mold our lives based on and create the lives that we experience based on the decisions we make. And there are some times when we make great decisions. There are times we make terrible decisions. We can never undo the past. We can ask for God's mercy in those instances where we've made the wrong decisions. But hopefully, those times where we recognize our failure, it prepares us and helps us to make better decisions in the future, decisions that respect God and honor him, which I think is exactly what David was doing in chapter 15. He knew he could not undo what he did with Uriah, but he knew moving forward, I need to submit myself to God. And that seemingly is what he's doing over and over again. So here we are. And we're going to continue to read and see how this all plays out. We have so much more to go. So I would love to hear what you have to say, but let's keep reading. Leave your comments in the comment box or on the YouVersion Bible app. And I believe we'll all be blessed by it. Until next time, thank you for watching. Take care. God bless. And remember, live by the word.